Next stop, Tecumseth Street. Please look right for traffic when exiting.
Hey everyone, it is Monday, May 2nd. The time right now is 4:12 p.m. and I'm about to take a walk along the King Street Transit Priority Corridor. That was the 504 King streetcar I just got off. And this here is King Street West. And I am currently walking east along the north side of King Street. And the temperature right now is around 12 degrees. Well, it's kind of a gray and gloomy day. And the transit priority corridor starts just up ahead here at Bathurst Street. And it runs for 18 intersections over to Jarvis Street. There's a 504B. That'll be heading to the Dufferin Gate. And the transit priority corridor went into operation back in November of 2017, and it was just a year-long pilot project at the time. And in April of 2019, Toronto City Council voted it to be permanent, and it won by a rather overwhelming majority of 22-3. So this is Bathurst Street, and once I cross this intersection, I'll be in downtown. And where that bar, the Banknote, is across the street will eventually be home to an Ontario line station. That's a new subway line that's going in. And I did an e-bike ride along the route, or at least passing by where all the stations will be, a few weeks ago, and you can find that. Hopefully I'll remember to link it in the description. If not, it's pretty easy to find on the channel. And one thing of note, I should have pointed out, you'll see there's signage at every intersection. I'll get a better look at the next one. As for the most part, through traffic along the King Street Priority Corridor is only allowed for TTC vehicles, that would be the Toronto Transit Commission, as well as emergency vehicles and City of Toronto maintenance vehicles, and any other necessary road maintenance vehicles, as well as bicycles. There may be a taxi exception too. I'll take a look at the signs. Although through traffic is allowed at a couple of intersections, I think at Bay and John Street. And those two see a particularly high number of pedestrians crossing, so I think that's why the through streets are allowed. Although at most intersections, vehicles have to turn right And the reason for this transit priority corridor is prior to 2017, traffic along King Street was quite heavily congested, as there is no east-west subway that runs this way and feeds into the financial district. It was not uncommon for the streetcars to get bunched up 3 or 4 at a time, and they should be spaced out about every 4 minutes. And it wouldn't be uncommon to have to wait 10 or 15 minutes, and often by the time one shows up, it would be too busy to get on. And it's actually a problem that they tried to solve back in 1993. And the solution then, I think, was during rush hour to designate the middle lane for streetcars and taxis only, and to eliminate street parking so cars could only go in the outer lanes. Apparently drivers had a hard time following those rules, as vehicles continue to park on the sides and cars continue to drive down the center. And this is Portland Street, and we can see authorized vehicles and bicycles accepted. Taxis accepted between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. And I think all but a few of the streetcar loading platforms are now on the far side. There's one there. So they're waiting for an eastbound streetcar. And with the elimination of street parking, that's allowed patios such as this to go in. So we're looking at about a 2.5 kilometer walk in total. So this outer lane used to be a curb lane, and cars would be able to park on it, but that was eliminated. There goes the 504. That one's going to the Distillery District. And I boarded the 504 from King Station. And there's another patio that wouldn't have been able to exist under the prior setup. In fact, this King Streetcar Priority Corridor has been so successful that it's inspired a busway on 14th Avenue in Manhattan. And there's been calls to remodel a number of streets in the city after this, prioritizing either bus or streetcar traffic. The original budget for it was $1.5 million to install it. And that included painted barriers and new traffic signs. as well as modifying most of the streetcar stops to be on the far side. And a number of platforms have popped up that include ramp access. Although this one just on the west side of Spadina doesn't have one. And there's one of the painted barriers. So this is Spadina Avenue, and this intersects with another streetcar line. See if I can make this light cycle. This car has to turn right. So I think after the first few weeks that this was installed, the University of Toronto did a study. They found overall travel times improved about 20 to 24% on average. Also, the streetcars were able to better maintain their spacing than before. And morning ridership increased about 35%, and evening ridership increased about 27%. I was working in the financial district at the time. And I had some coworkers who lived in Liberty Village, which is in the other direction behind me. They always kind of complained about how difficult it was to make the rather short streetcar commute into the city. And that was drastically improved for them. And this is Charlotte Street, and there's a 503 Kingston Road streetcar. It's not a super common sighting. That right there is the end of the line. I think it heads north up to a street called Oxley, and it turns around. So it's the 504, the 503, and there used to be a 508 streetcar that was a Lakeshore streetcar that would come up. And I think due to the pandemic, that one's been temporarily suspended. And here's a look at one of those platforms that's been added. And the reduction in cars has also led to King Street being a much more pleasant street to take a walk on. It is worth noting that this particular streetcar line is the busiest surface route in the city. And here is Peter Street. Well, just to the south of here is Blue Jays Way. Well, it turns into Blue Jays Way south of King. There's the Skydome off in the distance. And I think in a few hours the New York Yankees are in town, and they'll be playing the Blue Jays. So this part here is through the entertainment district, and then after this will be the financial district. And just up ahead on the right is Restaurant Row. And there was a restaurant there called Kit Kat. And its owner kind of famously complained about the King Street Priority Transit Corridor and demanded the city put an immediate end to it. And he made up a number of statistics, such as business was down 50% along this stretch due to the lack of vehicles allowed on the street. He also said that the neighboring Richmond and Adelaide streets, which are both one-way streets just north of here, saw massive increases in travel times, and none of that was true. In fact, I've read conflicting numbers if business was affected, but the worst I saw was it was down about 2.7%, and I saw some numbers saying business was actually up about 1%. But given the massive increase in ridership and improved transit efficiency, I'd say it's worth it. It's kind of funny how every time there is a project that removes cars from streets, it's always quite controversial. And a lot of business owners and NIMBYs always break out their pitchforks. Only to be seen that it was almost always a success in the long run. There's a look at the CN Tower. And this stretch, they close off this section of King Street every year for the Toronto International Film Festival. And I think what's silly about that is they could easily put it on John Street here. I think the former city planner Jennifer Keesmaat pointed that out, as this is a natural cultural corridor. But rather than close down John Street, they close down part of King Street and all the streetcars have to be rerouted. And that happens on a weekday. So that's a rather severe disruption to commuters. And in my opinion, an unnecessary one. But we haven't had to deal with that in the last few years. I think it would be a nice problem to have again this year. And according to the City of Toronto, some of the numbers given when they approved this project to be permanent,
What are you hearing out there?
was about 30,000 minutes of travel time are saved by travelers each day in total. There's a neat look at the CN Tower. The official numbers said ridership increased about 16% from 72,000 to 84,000 boardings a day. Some of that might have just been people coming down to King instead of taking the Queen streetcar. We had about 25% more customers boarded per hour of service. I think that might have been just during the rush hour. But either way, the numbers don't lie. There is Duncan Street. And I'm currently walking over the Canada Walk of Fame, which exists on both sides of the street. And one thing that went in, just in front of Roy Thompson Hall here, where the Toronto Symphony Orchestra plays, are these neat Muskoka-style chairs. And they don't look that busy now, but when things are in full swing during the summer, they will be. There's Roy Thompson Hall. I think he took a picture of the star for Rush. Gordie Howe's next to it. Martin Short and William Shatner. Leslie Nielsen. Robert Goulet. this would be Simcoe Street.
Jared, it must be over there. Because you have all of the buildings.
And with a lot of people still working from home, there's certainly a lot less people out waiting for a streetcar than there'd normally be.
If I go to that, a man who also needs me Sunday.
And here's where St. Andrew subway station is. And on the other side of the street here, we'll be in the financial district. These people do not have a walk sign. All those cars got trapped. I'm going to cross back over to the north side. So this is York Street. It looks like this one has a near side boarding. And just up ahead here on the left is the tallest building in Canada. At least for now, I think it will be surpassed later this year. That's also where I used to work. There's First Canadian Place. Well, I'd usually take the connected subway route. There are certainly numerous times where I found myself on a streetcar before and after work. More after than before. There's a 503 Kingston streetcar. And the TD Center is just across the street. And coming up is Bay Street. I think that's one of the two streets where through traffic is allowed. And you can see in this video things are working nicely. There doesn't seem to be any streetcars bunched up. So this intersection coming up would be considered the heart of the financial district. And just behind me, it's a rather popular view that is becoming endangered. The CN Tower is about to be blocked off by an office tower going up that's being built for the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan along with TD Bank. And at night this can be particularly stunning when the CN Tower is all lit up. There you can see one of the barriers in place to protect people waiting for the streetcar from oncoming traffic. And you can see here, through traffic is allowed at this intersection. There's just no left turns. And there's the look north up Bay Street. During the morning rush hour, at least it's always comical how many cars get stopped in this intersection. They try to clear it and they don't make it. Even with the priority corridor, streetcars often get held up by people who try to cross the intersection and get stuck. And it's not uncommon to see police along this stretch, often ticketing those with out of Ontario license plates who wouldn't expect that they can't proceed through each intersection. There's Commerce Court North, an Art Deco gem. And across the street, my favorite skyscraper, Scotia Plaza. And coming up is Yonge Street, that's where we'll find King subway station. And that's where I got out and boarded the streetcar to head to where I started to record this one. And unlike last month, I actually bought a monthly pass this month, so hopefully that'll encourage me to get out a bit more often. There's Yonge Street. And now we're on the east side of downtown. So the transit priority corridor spans the entire western half of downtown, from Yonge to Bathurst. But it ends at Jarvis Street in this direction. So this is the St. Lawrence neighborhood. And Jarvis Street is coming up. If I were to guess, I would say there's relatively lower demand on the eastern half of the line than the western half. So coming up is Church Street, then after that is Jarvis Street, and just south of there is the St. Lawrence Market. There's the King Eddy. And the first restaurant where I ever ate sushi. It's not uncommon for restaurants to close on Mondays. And there's the future home of Google Canada. There's some more street furniture. And I think the city is committed to adding more street furniture, as well as those elevated platforms. That Acura was making an ill-advised right-hand turn. And those chimes signify that it is 4:45. As nice as I like the sound of those bells, I find it quite annoying if they went off every 15 minutes if I lived or worked in the area. And this is St. James Park on the left. And here's where the transit priority corridor comes to an end, just up ahead at Jarvis Street. There's a look into the park. And St. Lawrence Hall. There we go, we did it. That was the length of the King Street Transit Priority Corridor. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below if you like this sort of thing or not and want to see more of it. And by that I mean, I guess, a more transit-oriented walk, if that makes any sense. And if you wish to support the channel, there's links to my YouTube channel membership and Patreon in the description. There's also a super thanks button you could click and send a little thank you. And I have an Instagram account at Johnny Strides. All right, thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. All right, take care, everyone.